LSU wins on Saturday versus Arkansas. They will travel to College Station this weekend at noon today. Coach Ed Ogeron will take the podium for his weekly press conference that you can catch right here on Eagle 98.1. He usually gets to the microphone about 12:20 after Chris Blair and Gordy Rush get it set up. How about Gordy? Weekend winner, huh? The one-handed catch?
He is on my list. His hands.
Did he make the SportsCenter top 10 list? Ott was taking live bets on whiskey and wine.
I mean,
I didn't see it.
Let's not blow it out of proportion here. He got some TV time. We're talking about SportsCenter top 10. A simple one-handed catch in the rain is not about to make.
A simple one-handed catch.
Yes,
he was holding a microphone in the rain. You got to know he knows he's on TV.
Let's adjudicate this during weekend.
You got to know he knows he's on television.
Let's adjudicate because we got a lot to get to here with the game.
Okay.
I've seen a lot of what I would consider to be misguided takes on this team. Not wrong takes, but I think a lot of people's framework when you're looking at this team is a bit off still. But we will get to the Gordy thing coming up in weekend winners. So something I'm seeing a lot of, Jordy, like okay, here's just a few comments from the last 30 seconds. Todd Jones, 24 points, 448 yards of offense in 18 minutes. That ain't good. Talking about what you gave up against Arkansas. Yes, that is true. And then people going on to lament the huge time of possession advantage that LSU had. How'd you get outgained? How'd you do all of these things? And the bottom line is that, look, this is a bad LSU team. And the quicker that you can be realistic about the team that you are and use that as the framework with how this team performs and the game, how the games are played, then you will find yourself enjoying these football games much more. And you will come away pleased from what you witnessed on Saturday. I mean, you can look, there are two separate conversations in my mind, right? I see a lot of people saying Arkansas was down so many players, and Gordy even in the postgame or somehow they had like a walk-on linebacker and ball, like all of these things. And that's all well and good, and that's true. And you can sit there till you're blue in the face and say LSU should be better than that. They should have been able to capitalize more on that time possession. They shouldn't give up the big plays defensively. Arkansas, that decimated in terms of roster, should never be able to hang with you. And these are all true, but these are all long-term conversations. You are who you are this year, and no amount of should-be's is going to change that. And so you just have to judge this team based on that framework. And when you do that, some things start to become apparent. Look, we know this is not a good LSU defense. And this is an LSU offense that is not great, but is far better than the defense. And is above average. Like, they're good, right? They're not great, but they're good. And this was an offensive performance in my mind that was one of the most workmanlike, blue-collar, all the cliches that you want to use. They did the yeoman's work in order to help you win this game. And a lot of people will dismiss the time of possession win or the huge play disparity. Or they'll say, well, just look at that. Look how inefficient you were in terms of total numbers versus plays, total points versus plays. And they're not wrong. They're not wrong, right? But much of that is by design. Again, your defense is not good. Now, they played well situationally this game. Like the 0 of 9 on third down is the key stat. But the big plays still kill this defense. We'll get to that more later, right? Your offense works so hard for something, the defense then gives it up for super cheap. But you have to accept this reality because when you do, the understanding to how this team tries to win games will become clear. And I think there are a few core tenets, right? The defense will never be good overall. They have to play well situationally like they did this game. The offense has to be able to run the ball and get to third and manageable so they can stay on the field. And the bottom line is you cannot rely on the defense to win the game. So anytime you're on the field, the defense is not. And that's a positive. And so I don't care how efficient you were in turning that time of possession into points or turning the raw number of plays into points. The bottom line is that when your offense is on the field, the defense is not, and that is a good thing for LSU this season. So, yeah, it was grindy. It was not overwhelming. 23 third down attempts, but you made the plays. TJ Finley, we'll talk a lot about him today. He did a spectacular job situationally when you had to have it. And really, 13 of 24 becomes 15 of 24 when you look at the fact that you got 2 fourth down conversions. So, a lot to like here, a lot to criticize here, but just recognize that this is how this LSU team is going to have to try to win this year. They're going to have to try to mask this defense, and the offense did an excellent job all night of extending drives and doing just that.
The numbers felt very 2015-ish, 2014-ish in the win. 27-24. You look at the total numbers, the time of possession. When you look at just the pure dominance of the way that LSU managed the clock and was able to keep the ball away from Arkansas at 41-43 compared to 18-17, yet only win by 3 points. That feels very Les Miles-ish.
Well, I don't even know. Miles never had defenses this bad. The only way that becomes how do you get outgained despite that disparity? Because your defense is terrible and it gives up. So you want to talk about giving up big plays? There's actually pretty much no doubt that LSU is the worst team in the country when it comes to giving up big plays. And we're going to dive into some numbers here and know this off the bat. The wild part of these numbers is the numbers I'm about to get into are not per game rankings. They are the gross number of big plays allowed. And despite the fact that LSU has played anywhere from 1 to even 4 games less than a lot of the teams that rank around them, they still rank this poorly. Recognize that. So they're 111th.
Jeez,
they are 111th in 20-yard plays allowed. They've allowed 44 20-plus yard plays in 6 games.
Sheesh.
They are 116th, having allowed 23 30-plus yard plays. They are 124th. There are only 2 teams worse than you in this regard. They're 124th in 40-yard plays. Fun fact, you and Tulane are actually tied with each other. You've both given up 16 40-yard plays on the year. The scary part is Tulane's played 10 games. You've played 6.
Oh.
And you are 126th. You are quite literally dead last when it comes to having given up 9 50-plus yard plays. So it's unreal. I really can't wrap my head around these numbers. In fact, I don't know if this is, and we'll get into some positives after this because this is just a starting point. But how ironic is this, Jordy? LSU is literally the worst pass defense in the country. They came into this game giving up 10 yards per attempt. That was already at the bottom of the country. It was worse than the FBS. They gave up 14 yards per attempt to Felipe Franks this game. Staggeringly poor. Now, injuries play an influence. We'll get there. But when you look up online, you rank 124th in the country, allowing 10.4 yards per attempt. So every time somebody, not completion, every time somebody drops back to throw a pass, they average over a first down. That is by far the worst in the Power 5. Only Miami of Ohio and Akron are worse. But the problem is those teams have played 2 games and 3 games. In fact, when you look at this stat, all the teams that rank around LSU have played less games than LSU. So it's the opposite of because the bottom line is that this defense is so bad right now that they are statistical outliers, okay? It's hard to be so bad on big plays in as few games as LSU has played, and it's hard to be so bad on yards per attempt when you have as large of a sample size as LSU has. So the only reason I don't bring this all up to start with the negative. I bring this all up to reinforce my point that you have to accept the realities of who this LSU defense is this year and what you have to do to win the game. And that's what LSU did. Why were they milking the clock from quarter 1, right? You saw a running clock, and they were bringing that play clock all the way down because they know
they don't want their defense on the field.
They have to keep them off the field. It's a bottom line. And it's really frustrating as an offense because you worked your ass off. I'm taking you out. I'm buying you dinner. I got you multiple bottles of wine. I'm working. I even got you a ring, all this stuff. And then, Danny shows up, and you just give it to him for 3 plays and 90 yards. Come on, you just made me go 14 plays. LSU had a 12-play, 30-yard drive at one point in this game. I'm working so damn hard over here, and then you're just giving it up for cheap whenever Danny comes sauntering in the room. That's the dynamic of this LSU football team. And I feel bad that we started here because I'm long-winded. We're out of time. A lot more thoughts. There's a lot of positives in this game, but just recognize that's the lens that I'm viewing this through and how I arrive at these conclusions.
While T-Bob's playing footsies after 3 weeks of dating, Danny's smashing in an hour.
I just want to kiss. Give me a good night kiss or something, dude.
Playing a little footsies. Verge Allsbury next.